You are now listening to the Eastdale Podcast. Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the E-Chamber Podcast. Whether you're tuning in on iTunes, Spotify, or you're checking it out on YouTube, hopefully the video works great this time. Last time it was all weird, so you just saw a picture of me and my beautiful daughter. But let's jump right into things. You see, I was thinking about the idea of competition, a lot of these playoff games, NBA, the Raptors and everything. And me and somebody were actually talking about something and the idea of rooting for somebody's downfall. So if you're into sports, you're going to be like, that's part of sports. You do not just want your team to win, you're rooting against another team. So when you go to arena, you cheer for one team and you boo another. Makes sense. And that's a big part of the experience. However, one big part of all of this is the idea that when you are in competition, specifically basketball or any team sport, winning is a limited resource, i.e. when you only one person can win, unless you have a tie. But you get what I'm saying. Only one person can win. And because only one person can win, you're rooting against one team becomes natural, because if one team succeeds, that means you will lose. And then we can see this can exist in other realms when there's direct competition. So then you have, whether it is that individual or a group of people will root against somebody else because their success means that the other person won't be successful. So you have certain people that will do that. However, when you start to think about that, you're like, Matt-Trill, that seems obvious, that seems natural, but let's start taking that a little bit further in other aspects of life. Maybe you're in a job and you want a promotion and there's only one promotion. You may end up starting to root against somebody else. Now we start to see that this can become a little bit more complicated when we bring that out in the real world. And that's the question I'm kind of asking. Are you unconsciously, subconsciously, whatever way you want to phrase it, you don't even realize that you are rooting for somebody's downfall? Now, it may be different degrees. I'm not suggesting that you're hoping their brakes are going to fail. Well, if you're listening to this podcast and that's what you're thinking about somebody, we need to talk about Jesus, just DM me. But all seriously, you could be rooting for someone's downfall. And you can see how this can become very toxic when you take it out of certain boundaries. Because you see, when you think about sports, basketball specifically, or any sport, you see some of these guys competing each other and they're rooting against each other, but a lot of them are actually friends. And when they lose, some of them could be fine and, okay with each other. It's only fan bases where it gets very toxic in some sports, where they will fight and hurt you because you're on an opposite team. And now we can see how we can put this idea out in other areas of your life, whether you're competing for a girl, competing for a job, competing about different factors. I don't know, whatever you're competing about. You can start to see where rooting for someone's downfall can be a very toxic line of thinking. What do I mean about that? Because then you are only consumed with being better than them. That's the one part. If you only want to be better than them, then you've almost limited yourself in that sense. Because if you're only trying to be better than them and not the best version of yourself, whatever that is in that area, you limit yourself. And that's a big thing. But let's take it off of ourselves for a second. To be rooting for someone's downfall in certain areas can be extremely toxic. One, because you don't know what that person is dealing with. That's another aspect. You could be rooting for someone's downfall, but when you learn their whole life story, you're like, wow, I actually would want you to succeed. Which brings me back to the idea of limited resource. Some of us are rooting for someone's downfall in an area where it's not a limited resource. So you look at something like companies like McDonald's, Burger King, KFC, all these different companies. A few of them are owned by the same person, but follow my reason. You look at all these different companies will be in the same area. You'll see a lot of different restaurants in the same area. You'll see two gas stations beside each other. Why? Because they're looking at the fact that money is not a limited resource. There's a lot of money out there to be had. There's enough money out there, and what they have to offer, they are confident that some people will go for one product, but some people will come for their product, and it's not a limited resource. Although personally for you, money may be a limited resource, they're looking at the greater scheme of things. They say money is not a limited resource. So you look at some people on social media, a lot of people want followers and everything, and some people can get toxic about other people. But people in the sense online is not a limited resource, meaning if one person likes you, that person is not limited to you. They can like a lot of people. So you can like a lot of different people, follow a lot of different people. So that's why you have a lot of different artists, politicians, famous celebrities who have multiple millions of followers. But they're not looking at the fact that they're a limited resource, because they're looking at the fact that there's enough people who have different tastes and different things that they like to go around. So you want to really think about this and the idea of, if you're rooting for somebody's downfall, which I argue is something that can be very toxic if you become consumed with just being better than somebody. But if it's a fact that it's an area that you think it's a limited resource, really think about it. Is that a limited resource? Now, if you are somebody and you and somebody else are both trying to get married to the same person, you may be very set on getting that one thing. So then part of what has to become one of your new realities is you have to let go your expectations on certain areas. You may have really wanted something, but because someone else got it, you never know, something better could be along. Something better could be coming along. So you really wanted a promotion, and that's a limited resource. And you say, Matt-Trill, I really wanted that promotion. That other person got that promotion. Now you're upset. But you never know, there could be a better job. There are plenty of examples of when people lost out on something that ended up being the best thing for them because they got something else. So really challenge yourself to say, are you rooting against someone? You don't really realize it, but are you rooting against someone? And if you're rooting against someone, you have to be careful, because that could send you on a path, a lot of negative thoughts, and a lot of negative things where you really want someone to do bad. And if it's done in a fun way, like sports, where you just want to beat them in that area, but in general you want their well-being, that's different. But when it starts to get toxic, where you really want that person to do bad, and when you see them succeed in other areas as well, you get upset. You really have to be able to work that out, because there's enough out there for all of us to be successful. So that's it for today. Take care. Have a good week.